mountain track to find solutions.
The penultimate round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship in Leidenburg continues right here on Supersport. And it was shaping up to be a battle royale as the season headed to a climactic finish.
Well, the town was founded in 1849 and many a battle raged here over the years, most notably the First Anglo-Boer War in 1880. But this was a war of a different kind.
Just a tad, Arnie, but as Kobus van Tonne confirms, consistency is the key to good off-road performances.
You know, normally we actually, our motto is to be consistent, and that's what we've done all season. But yesterday we've decided to push a little bit harder, and we're very pleased with the result from yesterday. So we'll just try to keep it up today, but still try not to break the car.
Obviously, there were several different approaches out there. For Don Thompson, there was little breathing space in Class B.
Yeah, I think today we just got Johan's right on our tail. There's only about a minute or so between us, so we just got to try and keep in front of Johan there and hopefully come in first.
Now, you had a non-finish in the Limpopo 400. The Zarco sorted out now?
Yeah, we'd redone the motor, and yesterday we just we ran the motor in, so we didn't push it too hard. But yeah, we've had two DNFs in a row that's cost us badly.
Hats and smiles for the young fans, but you needed a hard hat for all the expected action out there. The first of the two loops again run on the Rus-Senekal area. This section was almost 160 kilometers long and took in some spectacular new areas with breathtaking scenery, particularly in the vicinity of the Walkersons resort near the trout fishing haven, Dahlstrom. The first three cars chased as hard as they set off, while Grenier was only 36 seconds back.
The town was a sea of red as the Castrol Toyota took it away.
But it wasn't long before the finely turned out off-road vehicles got their first dip. Grobler and Moore had a clear way in front of them, and more importantly, no dust. That was a significant plus for them. Visser at Badenhorst had dropped back a little, and their crew then did a great job repairing a power steering malfunction overnight, and they were flying again.
Their teammates Taylor and Houghton in the second Toyota also gave themselves a bit of a break from the dust, but kept up a smart pace.
While the third Toyota Hilux under the firm hands of Marc Grenier, the reigning Class A7 National Rally Champion, was closing the gap a little to the men in front of him.
However, on prologue day, the wind blew a lot of the dust away. On day two, there wasn't a breath of wind. Nothing.
And that made passing very difficult.
But Matthews and Smith in the lead in the special vehicle class were putting together a masterclass of driving as they kept the more fancy teams at bay early on.
They were probably still celebrating that first-time win in the prologue. Bertolt and Vermeulen were chasing for all they were worth, but even though they were catching up, they could not gain much time.
Hutchinson, a two-time champion, and Bergman beside him, had a dreadful season. They started off with a massive accident in the Western Cape, in which the bat was burnt to cinders, and they've been on the back foot ever since.
The Silwards piling on the pace, trying to catch up the 90-odd seconds they were behind.
Ferguson and West, meanwhile, in sixth in the SB class, were driving within the limits.
One crew had the opposition hopping was Class B leader Don Thompson and Gary Campbell. They were having their best event of the year.
As for Coetzee Labuschagne and Johan Gerber in Class D, in the all-white Raconic Nissan hardbody, they were under immense pressure. The championship leaders, the Zermattens, had kept them right in the passing zone all the time.
And the Harpers, Nick and Ryan, were in turn keeping them honest.
But here's driving in dust, lesson number 101. The Harpers storm by, and watch closely as Henry just takes his foot off a little. But the dust just did not want to clear away quickly. It was tricky out there.
Some crews just ticked over until they could clearly see where they were supposed to go. Braking the vehicle early on was simply just not an option. Jaco Swanepoel and Keith Solomon in the IDM Cement entry were taking things really easy too, worried about what could have been underneath the H2O.
And the brothers Bezuidenhout had dropped a little in pace, but were trying to consolidate on that great prologue of theirs.
The Barkhuizens in 6th place were just noticing the loss of their power steering, but they soldiered on.
With Van Tonda and Guelpha just behind them in the Unifreight Ford Ranger, 6th in the SP class.
In Class B, there had been a decided shift. Derek de Toy, with a novice navigator Jan Hoffman next to him, had moved past all the others and into 2nd.
Class E, and here it was Peckham and Santoro, who had driven away from the rest rather quietly.
And Herman Sulwalt, with Paul Hellberg next to him, had also moved up a whole fistful of places.
Simon Beckett and Stefan Harris in the 2nd Century Property car had taken up residence in the top 3 in class and were going well.
In Class E, Visser and Leroux had a tight hold on the championship, and the Team Barbespan Toyota Hilux pair weren't looking to perform any heroics. Just a solid finish and a rich haul of points was their sole aim.
The batting order after more than 100 kilometers of racing at the first D control. It was Grobler and Moore who were ahead by 15 seconds from Visser and Badenhorst, with Cronje clocking the fastest time for the sector at 89 minutes and 49 seconds.
The Zermattens in 8 were putting away some very big scalps in the process too.
Visser and Badenhorst piling on pace aplenty and mixing aggression with some sensible, good driving.
While Cronje left very little in reserve.
Woolridge and Schulthammer were 2nd fastest on that first sector and had really turned on the taps, looking for a 6th consecutive podium in 2008.
In the special vehicle class, or the space frames as they're also known, it was Bertelt and Vermeulen who had made a big push, with Matthews and Smith falling behind to the tune of 37 seconds.
Thompson and Campbell surprised with their 5th place,
while the Bezuidenhout brothers were almost 3 minutes behind them in Class P.
Matthews and Smith were eager to get to the designated service point quickly, perhaps too quickly.
That was a really quick correction. But the route did get tricky at times. With dust clouds billowing like nimbus clouds, it was Thompson and Campbell up into the top 10 overall and 5th in the specials, who were having the race of their lives.
And the Sulwalts, just 5 points behind in the points log for the championship, were looking a sure bet to pick up a gap on Shamir Variawa, who had had an horrendous prologue with a double puncture and only 1 spare.
Regent Racing's Michael Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson had moved up into 6th place in their trademark yellow and blue and were enjoying a really good drive.
Off-road fans from Mpumalanga, Limpopo and Gauteng, who always undertake the journey to see the Toyota Dealer 400 up close, this time found that it was even more spectator-friendly than in previous years, due to a brand new innovation.
A large and well-appointed spectator and VIP area approximately 10 kilometers from Leidenburg on the Roos-Senekal Road, where the cars whizzed by 4 times. At the end of Loop 1, teams headed for the designated service park at the Leidenburg Rugby Club.
Oh yes, it's very important for us dealers, and we don't often get the opportunity to have such a high-intensity event taking place in our area. So the Toyota representation in the field of the competitors are quite good, and I believe Toyota is leading in the manufacturers' championships. It makes us dealers proud, and it's a good showcase for us to our clients out here in the area.
And I can remember when a post-over race car was everything.
Yeah, I can just about manage it too, actually. Out on the way to DSP, it was the Hoppers who had gone from 19th to 11th overall. A fine surge.
With Lo de Brain and Rudy Brits pushing hard in the last 30 Ks in Class B in the Ruacon Bat, they'd snatched the lead.
And put all the pressure on the defending National Navigators champion Hendrik Kraai and Tilo Vogt. This time, though, Hendrik was driving. The race was on. There was only 72 seconds in it.
The Zermattens too were going hell for leather, leading Class D.
But there were places to go hard and places to take it easy. With Peckham and Santoro doing all the placemaking in Class E, ahead by almost 7 minutes.
Still, the dust was unbearable at times, and it just kind of hung there. No mercy from the wind either.
Beckett and Harris third in Class B, 11 minutes back.
But no one was out of the woods quite just yet, including Fontonda and Guelper, who were 6th in the SB class.
Another former champion, Terence Marsh, together with Nav Peter Groenewald, was 7th in the A class.
While Hugo and Jaap de Bruin were in 7th in the SB class, just outside of DSP.
But the man who had ended up behind the black ball, Duncan Foss, was driving like a man possessed. From 42nd overall, he busted into the 22nd spot and 10th in the SP class.
The champion was mean.
In Class E, log leaders Visser and Leroux was second, 17 minutes to the better ahead of Fenter and Palmer, but 7 behind the leaders.
With Labuschagne and Gerber 2nd in Class D, chasing as hard as they possibly could.
And in Class B, Johan van Staden and James Rousseau were doing their own chasing, second, but a long way behind.
Duploy and Janssen van Vuren 9 minutes behind, with 3rd in Class D in the RFS Toyota.
And spectators certainly got their money's worth from all the big dices further back in the field. Malalan Toyota's Johan and Werner Horn going ape, while Nissan's Ivar Tollefson and Quinn Evans having a nightmare, hitting rocks and damaging rims all the way, but they kept plugging away.
After the first loop of 160 Ks had been completed, Grobler and Moore had carved out a 31-second lead. But more importantly, they were more than half an hour ahead of championship leaders Duncan Voss and Ralph Pitchford.
Grobler was out front dictating, just the way the Nissan stalwart really likes it.
In the special vehicle battle, Berthold and Vermeulen were making the Atlas Copco flags fly high, but Hutchinson and Bergman were closing down on them.
Class P and B's titles were also still a long way from being settled.
We'll be back on the other side of these.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, going the extra mile.